Welcome to Midlife Women Entrepreneurs, where you'll find real stories, practical strategies, and the mindset shifts you need for entrepreneurship. If you've ever felt like midlife was too late to launch a business, write a book, or chase a dream, think again. I'm Lynette Turner, your host, and I'm bringing you inspiring conversations and practical tips to help nudge you forward and keep growing in midlife. So let's jump. I've got John Solleder with me on Midlife Women Entrepreneur. John, you are the second male I'm recording today on my podcast. So typically it's mostly women, but clearly you're not a woman, but you've got a really good story and it's a great story. And I think it's some good advice for anybody out there that's thinking about maybe doing a bit of a career pivot, making some extra income, starting a little side hustle. So I'm going to hand the floor right over to you right away. I'm going to get you to give us a backstory and then we're going to get right into it.
Well, first of all, thank you, Lynette, for having me, and glad to be representing the male species with the other gentlemen from today. It is funny. My interviews are probably 75% women, come to think of it. I never really thought of it. But I guess there's a lot more female podcasters than guys. But anyway, my background is April 1983, 42 years ago. Started my very first business. And if you knew me then, you would not think of me as a guy who would go into business for himself. That was not who I was. Interesting thing happened. Three really interesting things happened in a very short period of time, about 60 days. April 18th, I got introduced to a direct selling company of 83, that is. I was still in college at the time. A friend of mine who I had wrestled with in high school, Tom Husted, presented to me, and I was actually working for another old wrestler, Dave Brzezinski, at a health club that he owned. And I got involved in that business. And by May 18th of 83, a lot of 18s here, I graduated college from Seton Hall University. And then President Ronald Reagan was our commencement speaker. And Reagan talked about two things, Lynette, that have stayed with me some 42 years and will probably stay with me to the grave. One was the fact that capitalism, while not perfect, was the only ism that freed people. That the then East German people were literally fighting every single day to get what the West German people had in terms of goods, services, opportunities, etc., that we take for granted here in North America, frankly. And that made a lot of sense. But then he really hit a nerve, because he talked about the fact that in 1932, when he had graduated college, that the economy was very similar to what it was in 1983. It wasn't good. The economies weren't good. Interest rates were very, very high. And long story short, he went back to the swimming hole where he had been a lifeguard the previous summer. And he spoke with a very successful businessman. And he said, "How do you become successful in business?" And that businessman said, "Well, the first thing you do is you find a mentor. And you find a business that you like, that they can mentor you in, obviously, that they're familiar with." And in Reagan's case, it was broadcasting. And as we all know now, he went to work as a broadcaster for a Chicago Cubs baseball team for one of their minor league programs. And, somebody eventually heard him. And, one thing led to another. People at Westinghouse actually liked his voice. So they sent him out to California to do voiceovers for commercials. And, one thing led to another. And eventually got involved in politics. And, the rest, as they say, is history. And then after graduation, by the way, I made $800 that first 30 days in business. Now, $800 doesn't sound like a lot in 2025, but in 1983, $800 would be about $2,500 today. And keep in mind, I'm a young kid and nobody had credit cards. So most people paid with cash. So when I said $800, I had $800 in my wallet. And that was very, very exciting. And I decided that I was going to stay in the direct selling business. My parents weren't too happy about that. I had this expensive college diploma, but I did stay in it. And about 30 days after that, I went to my very first real meeting, business meeting. And it was in Hartford, Connecticut. And the gentleman doing the meeting made a statement. He said, "For things to change, you have to change. And for things to get better, you have to get better." And at that point in my life, Lynette, I thought that, the president needed to change, the government needed to change, my parents needed to change, my address needed to change, my sisters needed to change, my girlfriend needed to change, everything else needed to change. What I recognized from that statement was the fact that I needed to change, that I needed to work on me as the brand. I needed to work on my self-development, for example, and on my education. I needed to read the books. Now, there were no podcasts to listen to, unfortunately. Today, of course, there's great ones like yours and so many others that folks can listen to get educated on these things. But I started to read the books. The classics, Think and Grow Rich, of course, by Napoleon Hill, The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace T. Wattles, As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. Anything I could get my hands on at the public library on self-development, I spent a lot of time reading. And it started to form my way of thinking in terms of me becoming the brand. And I worked really, really hard on me for the next 6 years. And by 1989, I made my first $1 million total. It wasn't in 1 year, but it was total since the time I started. But I struggled those first few years. I struggled. A lot of peanut butter sandwiches and, not a lot of dates. I drove a lot of crummy cars. I made the sacrifices any entrepreneur needs to make to be successful. And by 1989, I had a lot of it figured out. And it was sort of my second direct selling business then. And that one went that much faster because I knew what to do. I kind of served my apprenticeship. So that's my background. I'm still, 42 years later, still involved in direct selling. I've become kind of an authority. I've written books. Leave Nothing to Chance was my last book that I wrote. This one was on self-development. One prior to that, Moving Up 2020. This one's really more of a technical book, a how-to type of book if you're in direct selling. Now, let's describe direct selling. That is, companies that sell direct to the public. They're companies, some of them your listeners have heard of, Shackley, Amway, Herbalife, Nu Skin, Melaleuca, Mary Kay, Immunotec, my current company, Neora, there's thousands of them, frankly, that sell to the public from people, working from home, selling either over the internet or literally, coming to your home and selling your product. But that also would include people who sell insurance. A lot of network marketing companies that the insurance industry have kind of combined with to have network marketing type of pay plans for their agents. Things like Legal Shield, which is a legal defense program that people can buy. It's another one that falls in that category. So, anybody who sells to the public is indirect selling. We think of it generally as network marketing companies, but all those other folks would apply too, and they can learn a lot of the things that I learned over 42 years from Moving Up 2020, frankly. And, very simple things. Put 10 pennies in your left pocket. Every time you talk to a prospect, put one in your right pocket. What does that do? It gets you in the habit of talking to 10 people a day. Well, if you do that, I don't care what you're selling. Whatever you're selling, if you do that 10 times a day, 3 of those people are going to have a legitimate interest. One of them is probably going to buy on a consistent basis. That might mean 3 buy tomorrow, none buy the next day. But if you take the average over the course of the week, the month, the year, you'll probably know those numbers are pretty consistent, frankly. As you get a little better at what you do, those numbers may go up. But even if you're not good at what you do, you can make a living at least, if you do those type of activities.
You talk that it's direct selling, but, as you said, lots of people know it as network marketing, multi-level marketing, things like that. Back in the day, I think, like when you first started, was it easier to make that money? Do you think that business is relevant today? I mean, one thing we talked about on our pre-call is that there was one company, Modera, which I think had, some nice things, had some nice collagen, different types of, skincare and things like that. And I think, I don't know where it's at now, but I think they've had a little bit of a problem there. So is it still a viable business model?
It's a very viable business model where and Modera is one company. There's Team Beachbody. There's Rodan and Fields is another one. There's been 3 in the last year that have changed their business model completely, taking away people like my opportunity, to build a network of people, reselling product and recruiting other people to resell product. And they've shifted to affiliate models. And reason for that is purely financial. It's just very greedy for the most part when you look at it. What happened, Lynette, is when I started in 83, I knew nothing about anything. I was so young, I knew nothing about anything, period, but I knew nothing about the industry. And of course, I learned over time about companies like Tupperware and Avon that are 2 of the really old brands in the direct selling space. I started with my first company was Herbalife. The owner of that company, Mark Hughes, I got to know him and his cohort, Larry Thompson. And of course, the great Jim Rohn worked with those guys as well eventually. And those guys, they put the product in the trunk of their car and they went out and sold it. That's how they got the business started. And so did Mary Kay. I know I live in Dallas. I know the Mary Kay story very well. I know people that worked with Mary Kay for that matter. A lot of them are kind of getting up there in years. But The Mary Kay story is similar. The Dr. Shackley story was Shackley. He was a chiropractor. He started to sell products to not only to his patients, but to the community because he was concerned with chemicals, getting into things like, your home cleaning products, for his own kids when they were young. He wanted to prevent that. And of course, Amway, Rich Savas and Jay Van Andel, those were all owner operators. Those were all people who understood the business from the ground up because they were the first distributors in their respective companies. And there were others. That's not the case now. What's happened is the investment banking world back about 25 years ago started to recognize the validity of these companies. Because think about it for a second from a business standpoint. You could have hundreds of thousands of independent contractors, as most of these companies do, selling anywhere between a little bit of a product to a lot of a product on a monthly basis. You don't have to pay their health insurance. You don't have to pay their life insurance. You don't have to pay their medical insurance. They're independent contractors. So it's a great business model. And the investment community recognized that. And at the time that they recognized it, it made us all really feel good because we said, wow, Wall Street has recognized what we do as valid, which was great. I mean, these were Ivy League bankers. The problem with those type of people is that they're very, very greedy. And in some cases, not all cases, because some of them have done a great job. Okay. Some of them have been very, very honorable, but there have been ones, frankly, who haven't. They've come in and they've sucked the money out of these companies. And so that would lead to the question, how do you pick a good company? You got to pick a good company based on who runs it. Because anybody like me who's an independent contractor, I'm only as good as the company staying in business. My company tomorrow closes, I don't have an income. Doesn't matter what my skills are. Now, the good news is I don't worry too much about companies. And people would say, well, that sounds kind of cold. Well, here's what I worry about. What I worried about in 1983, my skills. Because my skills are transportable. If you learn the skills in a business and that business doesn't serve you well anymore, you pick up your skills and you go to a business that serves you better.
Okay, that's all excellent. It's such a great model to get into because like you said, all you really need are your skills. You don't need to handle the product, inventory, R&D, like all those things, that and even marketing, you're usually supported from a marketing perspective from some of those companies. But now as these companies start to switch their model to affiliate, what does that even mean? Like affiliate marketing, is it now it's no longer about building a team? It's about, I know what affiliate marketing is, but I don't know how it translates to this business.
What some of the companies are doing wisely is they're actually creating actual affiliate models for people who don't want to build a team. Okay. That being the case, the affiliate marketing does get them excited. And they once again can participate with network marketing brands that are good brands that they can take to market through Google advertising, through clip farming, through, a variety of different strategies that they understand so they can still participate. So I think that that's going to be the avenue for the smart network marketing executives. And I'm talking to some of them in August. I've got a meeting with some of them here in Dallas. That's the avenue that they're going to pursue. Because the other thing is, even without those companies we mentioned earlier going, changing their model, we weren't attracting younger people. Mostly, if you came to a meeting with my company or any other company, you're going to see a lot of gray hair. And that's great. But let's face it, we're near the end of our lives, the end of our careers in some cases. That being the case, any good direct selling organization needs to replace its sales force about every 10 to 15 years with that next generation. We want those people to have a seat at the table.
So what you're saying is if I want to get into this new version of network marketing, which is now more affiliate marketing, I would leverage my social media following.
Exactly. Well, one of the things that the younger people know how to do is what's called clip farming. And clip farming is basically when you get an ad, okay, a video, for example, on Reels or whatever other media, somebody has actually gotten paid to send that to you. And the idea of that is really pretty simple, that people have businesses where they develop, 5, 10, 15, 20,000 or more people on their respective social media. And then they're able to use that social media to say, okay, I want to sell John's product. John's going to pay me to get out thousands and thousands of videos. to people. And by doing so, they get compensated through a third party. But this is something that's becoming abundantly clear to me that it's necessary in network marketing for growth is to use clip farmers basically to get out lots and lots and lots of videos on my behalf. So that's something that not only I've been working on, but also been engaged in.
Using the influencer strategy, but more micro influencer strategy.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. Okay.
because otherwise, like, I mean, if you want, if you want Kim Kardashian to send out your
Kim Kardashian? Yeah. 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 Yeah.
whatever her name is, you're gonna write, or Paris Hilton, you're gonna write them a pretty big check, and you
Yeah.
you sell a lot of your brand. This is more for the person and this is funny, Lynette. This is to me, the people doing that business are like the network marketing people were in 1983 when I started. They were moms that were looking for, hey, while my kids
Yeah.
soccer practice, let me send out some videos for this guy. And every 1,000 I send out, I make $2. Okay. Well, if you send out 10,000, guess what? They make $20. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but if you're sending out 5 sets of them, well, that's $100 while you're sitting in the car. Okay. That's real money, right? That pays for McDonald's on the way home, or the violin lesson, or whatever it happens to be. So to me, there's a lot of people out there that will engage in that opportunity, maybe that are not interested in participating in network marketing per se, or even in being an affiliate themselves, but they'll basically help you and they get compensated for doing that. So it's a whole nother part of the economy that most people aren't even aware of, but that's how these people get paid. They don't send out those videos because they like your video. They send out your video because they get paid to do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. So, okay, on our pre-call, we talked a lot about making sure that there's different sources of income. And I think that's how we got into the whole subject of somebody wants to start a bit of a side hustle, maybe start to generate even $500 a month. You have a company that is where people could join as network marketer, correct?
Mhm. Yes. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, my company, it's called Immunotec. It's a Canadian company. Started in Montreal 29, almost 30 years ago now, based on research done by two professors at McGill on a product for the immune system. So, basically, I'm always looking for people to sell it both as affiliates or as distributors. You can do either, frankly. People that are successful with both. I've got people that use things like TikTok and Instagram and all that to promote. And I've got people that do it the old fashioned way. They talk to their friends or relatives and people at the gym, etc. Works both ways. It's an interesting, compelling story because the product has now over 92 patents on it. We just got featured on Top Doctor magazine, which is the preeminent magazine in the medical world. That was through one of my contacts, a guy named John Hyland. Was willing to do that. He's the publisher of that magazine. I met him through a podcast, by the way. so,
Yeah.
so by the way, if anybody's sitting out there saying, does podcasting work? Yeah, you meet great people, right? So that all transpired. But yeah, I'm always looking for people. And if you want to contact me, and I'm happy to send you information. Probably the best thing to do is just text me. Don't call me. Just text me. I'll give you my number. It's area code 972-259-0875. And just put it Lynette, and I'll know it came from Lynette's show. And yeah, I'll be happy to tell you about it. Like I said, it's an interesting product, interesting business. We do about $200 million a year in sales right now. We're in 18 countries. So if you're seeing this in Europe, we're in Europe, we're in Latin America. We're not in Asia yet, but that'll be down the road. So if you're hearing this in Japan or Korea or in the great countries in Asia, we're not there yet, but plan on being sometime in the next couple of years as well.
So why does a company like Immunotech stay in that business model versus trying to get on the store shelves? Or is it on the store shelves?
No, it's not on the store shelves. When the company, this is interesting, great question, by the way. This research started in 1975, so it's 50 years of research. And initially, the investors included John Molson from the Molson Brewery Company, and as well as two other gentlemen, a guy named Chuck Roberts, another guy named Dieter Beer. And they were all traditional business guys. They were not network marketing people at all. They had no experience, frankly, in network marketing. Chuck Roberts, a little tiny bit, his brother-in-law was in the business, but really they didn't understand network marketing, which is what they needed me for when I showed up.
Yeah.
That's a long story, but that was their initial thought. Was let's stick it in Walgreens and CVS and Shoppers Drug Mart in Canada and that sort of thing. But because the product needed description, And because the product, you have to mix it a certain way for it to, frankly, to consume it properly. And people needed information about glutathione, which is something that at that point, nobody really knew what it was. The medical community did, but the lay people didn't. Today, glutathione's become very popular, and a lot of people are aware of it. But anyway, you needed people like me that could sit down with somebody and say, let me explain this to you, why you're taking this product, how to mix it properly, how to take it, when to take it, etc. So they decided to go direct selling. And that was in 1996, but they had considered just sticking it on store shelves, but they realized it just wasn't going to sell. You needed the explanation. And by the way, that's not just Immunotec. That's a lot of brands in our industry. There's a lot of things that there's either application of the product or what the product does or justify the cost as to, why your product is more expensive perhaps than a similar product that you can buy on Amazon, for example, or some other search engine. And that's where people like me come in, is to really, give that explanation so that the consumer knows that they're not being taken advantage of, that they're spending money on something that's legitimate. So anyway, that's what those guys decided to do way back in 96. Yeah. And then the company was sold now 8 years ago to a gentleman named Mauricio Domenzain. He's out of Mexico City originally. And they've done a great job taking it into the South American and Central American markets. More to come. We're in like, the Dominican Republic, Mexico, Colombia, Peru, Guatemala, etc. But we've still got some big countries to come down there. Argentina being very large, Brazil being humongous. So we've still got some work to do in that part of the world. And in Europe, we've had some good luck in Spain, the United Kingdom, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, a little bit in Italy, a little bit in Portugal. And down the road, Asia's going to come too.
Okay, so let's say, all right, you know what? I think I'm going to give it a try. What time commitment would you say somebody would need? Like, okay, let's say I'm working full time during the day, but diversification of my revenue sources is probably a really good idea. So I'm going to text John hey, tell me more text message. And John, you're going to say, okay, here's how much time. Like if you really want to make X amount, how much time do I need to commit?
Realistically, because if you're new to direct selling, at least 8 to 10 hours a week minimum. Part-time.
Okay, well that's not too bad.
Is,
yeah.
A couple hours at night, a couple
That's
of nights
doable.
a week, still gives you time to watch the hockey playoffs, But, and Saturdays, a lot of people, a lot of network marketers, Saturday is a work day. They got their 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. They spend an hour Monday night and maybe 2 hours Wednesday night and maybe an hour Thursday night, and then Friday night they do whatever with their family, but Saturday is a very, very productive day in network marketing for a lot of people, and even Sundays. Some people on Sundays, but about 8 to 10 hours a week. Because the other thing is, keep in mind you're serving an apprenticeship. You're learning some new skills. Okay. So it's not like you just sign up and you know what to do. It's like you need some guidance. That's where I come in, frankly, is to guide you through the process. I've coached over 2 million people in this industry. So, I've done a pretty.
You're a veteran for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've earned this gray hair, believe me. So to cause it, my kids and my wife a little bit, but yeah, some of my distributors, they've contributed to it. Let's put it that way. But having said that, they've also rewarded me very handsomely financially over the years, and we've had a great career. We've had a lot of fun. We've been all over the world.
So I could expect mentorship from you, or would I expect mentorship from some other person?
Obviously, if you get involved with my company, obviously I'm going to mentor you. I'm going to bring you into the business, and I'm going to teach you everything that I know, over the course of time. That's the other thing. You got to give yourself time to learn. This is a new business model for most people. They haven't done this before. If you're looking at this from a retirement standpoint, okay, this is something, because I'm 64. So one of the things I tell a lot of people, my age group, is very simple. It's like, hey, do not depend on your Social Security money or your you guys
pension or whatever. Yeah,
old age pension. I think you guys call it. Look, that money's there, but it's not enough. Okay, now maybe you've got a pension that you made because you taught school, or you drove a truck, or you did whatever. Great if you got a second pension. But even at that, okay, you could go through money real fast. God forbid you or your spouse get sick. One of your kids do, God forbid. Somebody needs to go into a nursing home. I mean, the money can go really, really fast. So this is what I call an MSI. This is a multiple source of income business. It's another way to generate money for you and your family. Okay. Not a lot of pressure. Okay. You don't have to make, a gazillion dollars. Okay. But build a business. Now, what if you're in that last part of your working years? Maybe you're 50, 55, and you're saying, hey, I'm not going to retire till 65. Great. You got 8 or 10 years to do this a few nights a week, on the weekends. Give yourself time to learn, give yourself time to build the network, because it does take time. It doesn't happen overnight. And by doing that, that income's going to be there. Maybe you're going to be able to retire a little bit earlier, even. Okay. Or maybe you go the distance because it pays you to do that. Whatever it is, that's up to you. But that's where I'm really good as far as guiding people. Now, the flip of that is I've gotten really good at guiding young people. Okay. My son is one of my most productive people, not only in Immunotec, but
he's in Immunotec. Yeah.
But he also, my son, he does multiple things on the internet, and he's learned a lot by doing this type of business. He's got a few of his friends. And by the way, these are all smart young guys. These are all guys studying to be engineers for the most part. One guy's in construction management. I mean, they're smart young people, but they're even recognizing, hey, you know what? Life goes fast.
Yeah.
Let me have this little business on the side while I'm in, my 9 to 5. Let me have this little business that I'm building on the side, okay, for down the road. And here's the great thing with young people. And I've got a whole group of them in Monterrey, Mexico that I work with that are that age also. They understand the internet much better than we do. Okay, they you talk to them about Instagram and TikTok and X and all these other platforms. Well, they grew up with them. For us, we're still kind of going, well, how is this one different than that one, right? Like, I didn't know until recently. I didn't realize TikTok was the biggest search engine in the world, bigger than Amazon.
Yeah,
I know that.
Yeah, no, because it's like the TikTok store and stuff. Yeah. Okay, so let's say I send the text message. I'm in. So how much money after a year do you think, with, putting a solid 10 hours a week into this Immunotech, that I could make on a monthly basis? If I really, savvied on my social media marketing, things like that.
Well, I've had people like there's a doctor, for example, I work with down in San Antonio. I mean, he's been able to make, over 5 figures per month, okay, and using social media, 100%. I've got other people that are very, very, very part-time that make less than that, so I can't put an actual number on it. I mean, I wish I could, but I can't make a guarantee. What I can tell you is our product sells well. People want it. Our research is legitimate. Our search engine optimization is very, very good. I'm a good coach. Okay. Like I said, I've coached a lot of people in a lot of parts of the world. And so, but give yourself, I like a year. A year is a good thing with any business.
I think so.
In the beginning, you're going to be learning. You're going to be earning money too. By the way, you will make money, fairly quickly, but I don't like people that have expectations that they're going to replace their full-time job, because network marketing, by the way, now some people are going to get mad at me saying this in the industry. This is not a full-time business. This is a full-time business for me. Okay. For most people, this is exactly what we're talking about, Lynette. It's MSI. It's a multiple source of income. It's a couple of grand a month extra. Maybe it grows to more than that. Maybe at some point it does become a full-time business. But the industry was started with the idea, really, and it's debatable when the industry really started, but I go back to 1956 with Dr. Shackley, 1958 with Rich DeVos and Jay Van Andel with Amway. And let's say those three people were really the primary guys that started the network marketing industry, and then Herbalife in 1980 really advanced it in terms of compensation. But for the most part, if any of those people were on this call, and they're all dead, so they can't be, but if they were, they would tell you, like, yeah, I started my company for people to make part-time money. You go way back, okay, to like they believe it or not, 1920s, there was a couple of companies that were selling direct that became kind of the original network marketing idea. The idea was always for part-time money, what they used to call pin money. And I asked a friend of mine, Jim Northrup, who owned a company called Princess House at one time. I asked him one time, I said, Jim, what was pin money? And he said what that was women would take money and they pin it in their blouse so that their husband didn't know about it. And that became the Christmas money. That became, the kids' soccer money. That became the extra money that the husband said, I don't know where she got this money, but I'm glad that she got it, or they didn't even ask. And then, like I said, and they would literally pin it in their blouse so
Wow.
that, the husband didn't know about it and didn't go out and spend it, I guess. So
Well, I'm gonna change that. It wasn't pin in the blouse. It was tuck it into their bra, to be completely honest. But you didn't say that. I said it, so that's
let's
perfect.
say you can, yeah, I'll get, if I say that, I'll get somebody for me or
Amazing, amazing.
but to that point, it was the extra money, and that if you see it that way, okay, because I'll segue with this with your insurance question,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna give some people some ideas maybe that they've never thought about.
And first of all, you have to say why you're talking about the insurance too, because you have a bit of a background there as well.
Yeah, well, I've spent time in the insurance business, okay, over the years, and people say, well, you've made a fortune in network marketing. Why are you still a licensed insurance broker? Well, it's really simple, because network marketing people can't save money. Okay, they make it, they spend it. So I got really very back in the '80s. I was in the insurance business for a short time, but the reason I've stayed in really a couple of reasons. Number one, from a personal standpoint, the estate planning laws in the United States change based on normally who Congress is. Okay. So I always wanted to be up on the estate planning laws because I have a large estate, frankly. So I said, well, what better way if I'm licensed? I get all the information. They send me the information because, in theory, an insurance broker needs to know so that they can counsel people on estate planning. So that was personal interest, number one. Number two, I've always just been interested in money. So I'm interested in money, the insurance business, the real estate business. I mean, these are all businesses that are conducive to money. But then the other thing was, so many people would come to me for advice and just say, I need to do this, I need to do that. So what I recognized was, what a great way for people to take care of some of their financial needs from their part-time network marketing business. And what are some of those needs? Things like final expense insurance. Okay. When you die, you do not want to do what my father did and leave a bunch of debt. Okay. I learned that firsthand. My own father died, didn't leave any real money for my mother. That was a problem. Final expense insurance will put you in the ground. Okay, bottom line. It sounds like what it is. Final expense insurance. It helps to pay your credit card bill, whatever's left at the hospital, some overage, and cemetery service, et cetera, et cetera. That's one need. Okay. And depending on your age, you can do that for, 40, 50, $60 per month. It's not an expensive thing, but it's a necessary thing if you don't have life insurance. And by the way, a lot of 60-year-old people do not have life insurance. I don't know why.
Well, it runs out. Like I was thinking about mine too. Like I have a life insurance, but it only goes to 65. So then what? Exactly.
Final expense insurance. So that's
Yeah.
one need. What about SEP retirement? Okay. Now, what is a SEP plan? A SEP plan is basically a separate retirement plan. You're eligible for this if you are self-employed. You do not have to necessarily be full time. You can have a job and have a separate retirement account here in the United States. In Canada, you can too. It's a little different, but a way to fund it. You say, hey, you know what? My job is paying my bills, it's paying my mortgage, paying my car payments, paying my health insurance, paying all the stuff, taking care of the kids, etc. But I'm not putting money away for retirement. I want to start to put $1,000 a month away for retirement, for example. Okay. Once again, network marketing creates the money. You take it and you put it into a separate retirement account that you forget about. You just every single month you fund it. Okay, get a set amount: $1,000, $500, $50. The younger you are, is the better time to start.
And this is insurance though that you're
Yes,
talking
yeah.
about.
Insurance companies, your insurance agent can guide you on all of this. Any insurance company really has annuity accounts or SEP retirement accounts that you can fund as an independent person. What else? Okay, long-term care. Long-term care has become a need.
Yeah.
Okay, why? Because we're living longer. Here's the great news: we're living longer. We've got all these great discoveries, right? I think it's now 82 and 85 statistically people are living to, depending on where you live in the world. That's a long time. But what happens if you need to go into a nursing home or a care facility, or you're even being cared for in your own home, but you need professional nursing? Maybe your kids are taking care of you. They're going to go to work. They're going to go make a living. So from 8 to 4, somebody needs to come in and take care of you. That's where a long-term care policy is something that you should look at once again. And once again, it costs money through an insurance company, but you can fund that so that if and when that time comes. Now, here's the nice thing. What if it doesn't come? What if you never use it? You pass away, it's more life insurance for your family. Okay? Tax free. Okay.
So that's called a long-term care
LTC,
insurance.
long-term care policy. Okay.
Okay.
And those are three basic needs, right? Now, what there is a fourth. Now, I don't know in Canada your law on this. Okay, I should probably have checked this, Lynette. But in the United States, we have a thing called a 529C plan, and a 529C plan is as follows: it's a guided funding vehicle for college education of your children or grandchildren. Once again, through an insurance company. Okay, like my kids, for example, I used Merrill Lynch for years that I funded their college education when they were little kids. They were 3, 4, 5 years old. I was putting in $100, $500, $1,000, $2,000, and there's a cap to this, by the way, on an annual basis. But once again, by doing that, when they got to college age, I didn't have to go, oh, wow, where do I get all this money? It's like I've been saving it all along. And this is, once again, something else that you can do from your network marketing business. Maybe you say, once again, hey, all the other bills are paid, but little Johnny and little Susie are going to want to go to McGill. They're going to want to go to Stanford. They're going to want to go to Harvard. They're going to want to go to any good school. Education costs a lot of money. Well, my point is the money has to be created. So, it doesn't fall out of the air. You create it for your network marketing business, and then you utilize it, okay, for these other things. What you have to be is smart with the money you do make, okay, and put it away in these different vehicles so that your family is taken care of. If your demise comes earlier than it should, make sure you got adequate life insurance. Okay, what's adequate life insurance? Well, honestly, these days, it's at least $1 million minimum.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, no, and that costs money. If you're 60 and you don't have insurance, well, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Well, make it network marketing.
And I like how you sort of tied it all together. You connected it to purpose, really, right? It's really not so that you can you can go get your Botox or whatever with it, but it's more around just kind of like setting up the rest, the estate part of it. I like it.
And by the way, if you're not in direct selling, I'm sure you have listeners that are in real estate or they're in other things. Look, these same rules apply.
Okay? Yeah, for sure.
Don't look to impress people with throwing around money. Okay, be the millionaire next door. One of my favorite books, besides my own book, Millionaire Next Door, because you wouldn't know these people have money. Be that person.
Yeah.
Be that person.
Yeah, no, that's great.
I know that guy's got money, but I'm not sure how he has money or why he has money. Be that person. You don't need to impress anybody. And frankly, most people are going to resent it anyway. So no reason to do that.
Exactly. John, give us your text message again, your phone number.
972-259-0875. Just text me. Put Lynette in there. That way I'll know you came from Lynette's show. And happy to answer anything that you want to know. And by the way, if you don't like my company, okay, for whatever reason, maybe you don't like, science. Okay. I've got friends in companies that sell skincare. I got friends in companies that sell hair care. I got my friend at Legal Shield's the #1 earner in the world with it. So if you don't like what I do, I'll help you find something and someone that is also a professional, because I believe everybody should have a direct selling business of one way, shape, or form. I prefer mine, but if it's not mine, we'll find you somebody that can
Sounds good.
Coach you up in what you want to do and to help you out, because I believe in people and I believe in the industry.
John, you've been amazing. Great storyteller, great inspiration. I might even just give you a little text message myself.
Okay, happy to answer.
All right, John, I will talk to you soon. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much.
Hey, it's Lynette. Thanks for listening today. Please like and subscribe. And if there's somebody out there that you think could benefit from the episode, give it a share. Midlife is your time, so go get it.